Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blog, where I shake my brain nipples every day so I can get some of that dirty YouTube money so I can afford to provide you folks free in-person technology education for Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. We do classes in Durham, North Carolina. We're doing a class on AI and SQL next week. We're doing a class on AI and web scraping coming up on November 19th. There are going to be more. Take a look at silicondojo.com. Also remember, the reason I shake my brain nipples is free to the user. Free to the end user is not actually free. There's a little donor box link down below if you'd like to throw a couple of dollars in. And with that, we dive in. And as we dive in, I will say AI can be disruptive to some companies. I'm not saying that AI is worthless. It's just not worth what we're told it's worth. And so this is interesting with Chegg. So we've seen this with Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow has been decimated over the past couple of years because there's no reason to go back to Stack Overflow anymore. If you're not a coder, you may not know Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow was, I don't know what the fuck it was, Quora? Anyways, it was like a question and answer platform for coders. Basically, you go there, you ask a question, and then everybody treats you like a piece of shit. And maybe in their insults, there's actually an answer to what you're looking for. But anyway, Stack Overflow was like the best of god-awful solutions for coders looking to figure out how to solve their problems. And one of the things that I will say is with LLMs, there's just no reason to go to Stack Overflow anymore. Again, I do pay ChatGPT $20 a month so they can create those fancy little featured images that you see, those thumbnails that you see, and when I have coding problems, and I gotta say at this point in time, there is literally no reason to ever deal with Stack Overflow again. Whatever my questions about the business viability of AI is, I can tell you the viability of Stack Overflow is basically about nil at this point. So there are some companies that are going to be completely destroyed with artificial intelligence. So that's the interesting thing with Chegg. So Chegg comes up with, like study material, essentially study material for college students. And it's failing. It went from being a $12 billion business to now it is cutting 45% of its staff, right? Chegg replaces CEO and cuts 45% of staff as AI decimates its one-time $12 billion business. And this is the other thing to be thinking about in the technology world and the business world. Sometimes things come in and they just change the entire game, right? If you're a taxi driver, I used to talk to old school taxi drivers, right? At one time, a taxi medallion was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? I was talking to a taxi driver when I was up in Boston years ago. He had been a taxi driver since he had come to the United States, and basically he had put his 3 kids through Ivy League schools, basically off of driving a taxi, right? He was saying back in like the 90s or something, these medallions had come up on the market. So like in Boston, there's only a certain number of these taxi medallions. These medallions had come on the market for like $40,000 a piece. He had begged friends and family and everybody else for money so they could buy like 3 of these medallions. And apparently, until Uber came in, like that asset alone for him was worth something like $2 million, right? And then Uber comes in, and all of a sudden medallions just aren't worth so much money anymore. It's not necessarily because you technically did the wrong thing. It's not that type of thing. It's just the world changes. Again, the macro forces of the world change. You look at companies like Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster was doing great all the way until Netflix came in and just absolutely and utterly destroyed Blockbuster, right? And so that's one of the things to be thinking about, especially right now with these economic times, right? With Amazon laying off 30,000 employees, with UPS laying off 48,000 employees, with the federal government laying off hundreds of thousands of employees, with the economic disaster that we are currently in. Something for you to be thinking about when you're looking at your company, when you're looking at your business, is the whole question of when the macro forces hit, will the business itself actually remain viable? Or will the business fail, not because of a bad CEO, not because of leveraged buyout, of bad financing or anything like that, but will the business fail just because the world has moved on? I think it's an interesting question. AI's impact on jobs isn't always so direct as replacing workers. Chegg, the education tech company once valued at more than $12 billion, has said it is cutting 45% of its workforce and replacing its CEO as a result of the technology, which has essentially rendered many of its services obsolete. Having started as a digital and physical textbook rental service, Chegg later expanded to offer homework help, tutoring, and study tools. It offers subscription services that cost between $15 and $20 per month. Chegg's popularity exploded during the pandemic thanks to almost every education facility in the world being forced into virtual learning. Its share price skyrocketed 345% between March of 2020 and January of 2021 to give the company a market cap of more than $12 billion. Then ChatGPT launched. And again, we talk about things like with macro forces. So they're going along, they were fine, right? Chegg has been around for God knows, years and years and years, right? They were fine. But then the pandemic happens, right? And they go up their value goes up by 345% because macro forces are forcing people to do the whole remote thing. And so they fit into that particular paradigm. And then right after that, ChatGPT comes out and macro forces kill them. Right? This is how we talk about macro forces. Again, you cannot fight the macro. With billions of people opting for often free Gen AI tools instead of Chegg for their education needs and cheating, the company's stock price was down 99% from its peak in November 2024, erasing $14.5 billion from its value as the company lost 500,000 subscribers. I think that's the other interesting thing with this whole AI deal, right? With OpenAI. The reason we're told OpenAI is not a bubble is because they have 800 million like daily users or weekly users or whatever else. But it's a free service. It's free service, right? For most people, like 5% of OpenAI's users actually pay for it. And even when the user pays $200 a month, right? When their professional users pay $200 a month, OpenAI still loses money on that. So basically, OpenAI is burning money. Right? OpenAI is burning money, and there's 800 million people standing around to watch the money burn. I think one of the interesting things that we see in this whole like content world is the interesting question of why are there no rules against content dumping? Right, so what we hear about China, right? The reason that China is our enemy, right, from a trade perspective, is they produce goods lower than our companies are able to produce the same goods, and therefore they're able to sell the products in the United States cheaper, right? The idea is many times they're actually selling products possibly for less than it costs them to actually produce those products, and that is considered dumping, right? And dumping for physical assets is actually illegal in the United States, right? So if Food Line used to do this, Food Line goes in and they literally sell products for less than it costs to buy them so that they get more traffic into their stores, which basically means they bankrupt their competition because their competition can't compete, right? Then once the competition goes out of business, then Food Line jacks up the prices of the products in their stores, and that's how they're successful, right? That is literally illegal in the United States. I think one of the curious things we start talking about these digital businesses is for some reason, it's not even against any regulations to do that, right? So you have Chegg. You have Chegg, which is it was a viable company providing a product that people were willing to pay for, right? OpenAI came in. OpenAI did not come in with a better profit model. They did not figure out a way to provide the same products that Chegg was providing, essentially for a lesser cost, and therefore they're able to sell for a lesser cost, so they outcompeted Chegg. Right? No, what OpenAI did is basically they mined all of the information they could possibly mine, right, for free, basically not paying the people for that until they legally had to pay the people for that. And now they're providing that information to the world for free. And so that's the thing. How can Chegg, and then how can other companies compete against these tech Goliaths that literally are just burning money to get users, right? Again, this is where I talk about just the syphilitic garbage going on in Silicon Valley. The fact, right, that these insane, perverted bastards literally do not care that they're destroying the foundations of our society just so they can get a little bit of extra blood money, right? But as I say that, it's also the truth. It's also the truth, right? They do not care what they destroy as long as they get a little bit of money. And our government officials, again, for some reason, if it costs me, $20,000 to build a car and I sell it for $15,000, right? There might be jail time there. Right? Whereas if it costs me $100 million to create an AI product and then I give it away for free, that's capitalism at its finest. But that's currently what we're dealing with right now. As reported by Reuters, Chegg is now slashing 388 roles globally, or 45% of its workforce, to reduce costs and streamline operations. It is also bringing back old CEO Dan Rosenwig, effective immediately replacing Nathan Schultz, who has stepped down and will serve as executive advisor. Chegg tried the, quote, "if you can't beat them, join them" approach by launching its own in-house chatbot called Chegg Mate, but it failed to turn around the company's fortunes. Probably because they were not able to simply burn other people's cash the way OpenAI can burn people's cash. That's the thing. In this particular competitive market, it comes down to how big a pile of cash do you have to burn? And if you don't have enough cash to burn, we are going to put you out of business. And that is currently what is going on. So it's kind of interesting to see these particular stories. Again, whether it's Chegg or whether it's Stack Overflow, some of these companies, so basically these companies are out there. They were built off of providing, again, things like question and answer services, that type of deal. And the fact of the matter is the LLMs provide those services pretty darn well. And the problem is now is that they're competing with companies that literally don't even have to think about profit and revenue, right? They can burn so much money. And that's a big question, is how do you compete with those companies? And from a practical standpoint, can you? And I think basically how our system is set up at this point, for a lot of these things, you probably can't. So then the question is, what path do you go down? I think about this with my plumber. So I deal with a plumbing company here, deal with some of my plumbing stuff. I had a problem the other day. So I called and I got their AI assistant. They're very happy AI assistant. And I was so sad that I was having issues. And I started screaming at the AI assistant. And that's one of the things to think about. Like, as everybody goes AI, is the real value proposition to go back to more human things. More human things, but maybe smaller. Again, kind of going more to the luxury model, right? Okay, so OpenAI and all these things are going to commoditize all these AI services. What if we go back to more bespoke services for our customers, that type of thing? That might be a way to go. So it's something to kind of think about and to ponder, basically, as the world changes. So yeah, there you go. Chegg is sucking wind. If you ever use Chegg, it's kind of weird. I don't know if Chegg is good or bad. It's kind of one of those companies. Just one of those companies that exists. Anyways, so what do you think about this? What do you think about Chegg sucking wind? What do you think about what was a $12 billion company losing 99% of its value because it just cannot compete with big tech that is able to burn cash? What do you think about the job losses and the rest of it? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass. Just be a real Lutnick and do it down there in the comment section. Do remember, the thing that I actually care about is Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. Free to the end user, hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do. We're having a class in Durham, North Carolina on AI and SQL coming up next Wednesday. We're having a class on AI and web scraping coming up on November 19th. If you're interested, go to silicondojo.com. Do remember, free to the end user is not actually free. That's why I shake my brain nipples here. If you'd like to support what I do with donorbox.com, there's a link down below. And with that, see y'all later.